Plasma. It provided a major advantage to the Allies during World War II. In North America, scientists such as Canadian Dr. Charles Best and American Charles Drew pioneered new methods for mass blood donation and storage. Plasma particularly was revolutionary in warfare, as it was easier to transport, less sensitive to the environment, and had a far longer shelf life compared to whole blood. As early as August of 1940, America was sending plasma to the United Kingdom, to be used by both civilians and soldiers. Dried plasma was revolutionary, allowing plasma to be shipped without the need for refrigeration, and most importantly, allowed for medics to carry it directly on the battlefield. Dried plasma, essentially a powder, is bottled and then tinned for travel. It can be preserved for upwards to 2 years at room temperature. To reconstitute dried plasma, distilled water is added, and in about 3 minutes, a medic has usable liquid plasma to give to a patient. Once in liquid form, it was usable for around 4 hours. So what is plasma? It's the liquid portion of blood. About 55% of our blood is plasma, with the remaining 45% red blood cells. Blood plasma is a light amber-colored liquid, no longer red, as it doesn't contain red blood cells to carry oxygen. It does, however, contain nutrients, hormones, and proteins. Significant to a medic, it contains clotting factors. Plasma can help with clotting, but most importantly, it keeps a man alive by replacing lost blood and plasma during shock, stabilizing blood pressure. Donor compatibility does still matter with plasma. However, plasma can be pooled, as it was done during the war, from different donors, usually around 10 from different blood types. Their plasma was mixed together in labs with the hopes that any harmful antibodies would become diluted and/or neutralized. These pools would be tested against blood samples for universal compatibility, after which the plasma could be given to any soldier regardless of their blood type. The process was crude compared to modern standards and would lead to hepatitis outbreaks among other health problems, but it was deemed an acceptable risk during the war. Plasma compatibility is the opposite of blood compatibility, with type AB plasma being the universal plasma. Whole blood used during the war was not pooled and labeled with its type. Scientifically distinguishing blood types became available after the main types were classified by Austrian-American biologist Karl Landsteiner in 1901. Testing of blood types for the military slowly began in the 1930s. This was important. Receiving the wrong blood type can cause a patient's antibodies to attack the donated red blood cells. Receiving incompatible plasma runs the risk of antibodies in the plasma attacking the patient's current red blood cells. The outcome of incompatible donations varies, but shock and death are possible. Blood transfusions during World War I were not common early in the war. Blood type testing was often overlooked, and transfusions were often a basic arm-to-arm procedure. Towards the end of the war, improved Canadian and American techniques made it to field hospitals. The introduction of bottled blood mixed with sodium citrate prevented clotting, helping create the first blood banks. Transfusions were most successfully done as part of a pre-operative preparation in case of wound shock or hemorrhage. World War I led the way for nations to create comprehensive blood services. These services would first be tested in war during the Spanish Civil War, which mobilized civilians to donate blood. Refrigerated trucks were used to transport blood around the country. It was found refrigerated and treated blood was good for up to 18 days. The importance of blood during wartime was now known at the outbreak of World War II, and nations quickly expanded their blood programs. America and Britain, who had been working with dried plasma, were at a huge advantage. Canada and the United States donated huge amounts of plasma, both liquid and dried. In 1940, the American program Blood for Britain saw 5,000 liters of bottled plasma sent to the UK. Plasma was proving much easier to transport long distances over whole blood, though doing so would evolve throughout the war in terms of refrigeration and bottling techniques. Despite donations from North America, Britain was primarily self-reliant on blood during the war, with a highly organized blood transfusion service and generous public.
You should volunteer at once whenever a drive for blood donors is held in your area, or you can register now at your nearest hospital. Later, you will be called for a contribution, which is taken under strict medical supervision. Your blood is separated, bottled, frozen, and evaporated to a powder. It is then dispatched to the battlefront, where it is ready for use at short notice.
The Army Blood Transfusion Service alone could collect 1,000 liters of blood a day. Dedicated dispatch units were responsible for getting blood anywhere it might be needed. In 1940, Britain began emphasizing storing plasma, both dried and liquid, over blood. Producing plasma was accomplished by a filtration method. Producing dried plasma required plasma to be spun at a very low temperature until it freezes, after which is put in a drying chamber, which evaporates the water. It then becomes a powder. A similar process could also be applied to serum, which is the liquid part of blood remaining after the cells have clotted. Serum has all the same properties of plasma minus the clotting factors. It therefore does not require anticoagulants. Serum was also used during the war, often made simply due to a lab's ability to produce it over regular plasma. In 1940, the Americans, notably Edwin Cohn, worked on plasma fractionation, the separation of components in blood plasma. This led to the use of serum albumin, a protein essential for maintaining the osmotic pressure in blood vessels, preventing their collapse. In 1942, the U.S. military accepted concentrated human albumin as a blood substitute. Serum albumin was revolutionary, as it could be transported in small 100 milliliter ampules. It was as robust as dried plasma, but could be administered much quicker. Transfusions with purified albumin on the battlefield rescued thousands of soldiers from shock. The Germans, Japanese, and Soviets lagged in blood innovation during the war. They relied on large volumes of whole blood donations and in-the-field donations. The Germans particularly hindered their blood program, as blood donors had to be tested to be of pure Aryan descent, though this was less strictly followed later in the war. Blood testing was universal for German troops. The German armed forces listed blood type on their dog tags. Notably, SS members tattooed their blood type on their arm, which was something that identified them to their captors at the end of the war. Notably, America was also hindered by racist policy. Initially, the blood of African Americans was rejected by the Red Cross, and only later accepted if stored separately from that of whites. Of note, Dr. Charles Drew, who pioneered large-scale blood banks in America during World War II, was African American. Despite the rapid advancement of blood services and technology during World War II, many gaps remained in the system. The British, who had the best blood system of the 1930s and a robust system in the 1940s, still did not universally blood test soldiers. A blood type is not present on British dog tags, as it is on American. Occasionally, British blood type, if tested for, can be found in a British ration book or pay book. The Japanese also did not list their blood type on their dog tags. A Soviet soldier might write their blood type, if they knew it, on their version of a dog tag, which was a piece of paper inside a cylinder. Blood testing in the field was possible, but universal blood was a soldier's best bet. Even American soldiers with the best blood services during the war had only an estimated 85% accuracy on their registered blood type. Lastly, some reports indicated the Japanese, and in some cases British, used coconuts in place of plasma during World War II. This has never been confirmed, but studies carried out after the war indicate it is possible to hydrate a man short-term using this method, but it is not a plasma replacement. Coconut water has about 1/4 the sodium level of plasma and about 10 times as much potassium. Overall, coconut water is much more acidic than human plasma. One study further indicated a 7% chance of an allergic reaction. Alright, I'm Johnny. This was a tricky one for me. I normally don't do medical history videos, but it's an interesting and underappreciated aspect of war that saved thousands of lives. So I hope you listened varicosely. Alright, take care and have a nice rest of your day.